So good morning, sir. Good morning. I'm Shivali Lavale, the director of the Symbiosis School of International Studies. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. S.V. Mujumdar, our Honorable Pro-Chancellor, Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar, our Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Rajni Gupte, our Chief Guest, the Honorable Foreign Secretary of India, Shri Vardhan Shringla ji, our distinguished panelists, invitees from our partner institutions, which include think tanks, universities, members of the corporate sector, and members of the media, deans, directors, faculty, and last but not least, a very large number of students to the 7th edition of the IRC themed competition, Convergence, Multi-Alignment, Shaping India's Foreign Policy Agenda for the Next Decade. The theme of the conference, I'm sure all of you will agree, resonates with the current situation in our country as well as across the globe. I'm sure, or rather we are sure, the conference will provide a platform to deliberate the challenges, but also to explore opportunities and possible solutions. That said, I would now like to invite our Honorable Pro-Chancellor, Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar, to deliver the opening remarks. But before that, let me take a couple of minutes to introduce her. Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar is the Principal Director of the Symbiosis Society and the Pro-Chancellor of Symbiosis International University. The Symbiosis International University is a multidisciplinary, multinational, multicultural university that has over 45,000 students from all states of India, as well as international students from 85 countries. Dr. Vidya holds a postgraduate degree in medicine, a degree in law, and a PhD in internationalization of higher education in India, a subject that's extremely close to her heart. Having presented papers at various national as well as international conferences, she has numerous research publications to her credit and has also authored several books. Ranked number 14 among India's top 25 powerful women, Dr. Vidya has been instrumental in bringing in innovative approaches to promote internationalization of higher education in India. She has been a member of the University Grants Commission for 2 terms, the Central University Board of Education under the Ministry of Education, as well as the Indian Council for Cultural Relations under the Ministry of External Affairs. And she has also been a facilitator of innovative approaches to higher education in India. She is the chairperson of the FICCI Committee on Higher Education and has served 3 terms. Dr. Vidya has been appointed a member of India Brand Equity Foundation Trust, set up by the Ministry of Commerce and Industries, Government of India, to promote Brand India label in overseas markets. She was elected as member of the Central Governing Council of Services Export Promotion Council, set up by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, member of the General Assembly of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, and governing body of the Yashwantrao Chavan Academy of Development Administration, Government of Maharashtra. She's a member on the board of several organizations like Rayat Shikshan Sanstha, Research Committee of the Association of Indian Universities, Public Health Foundation of India, Symbiosis University of Applied Sciences, and many more. Believe you me, the list is extremely long. Dr. Vidya's hard work has won her numerous awards and accolades. Her continuous endeavor to innovate and initiate has helped Symbiosis attain its present respect and admiration. Having accomplished all such feats, Dr. Vidya is now committed to shape the Indian higher education globally through her extensive work in the field of internationalization of higher education. Ma'am, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Shivali, for the very long introduction. We can cut it short next time. The chief guest of today's function, Shri Shringla ji, Dr. S.V. Mujumdar sir, the founder, president, and chancellor of Symbiosis International University, Dr. Rajni Gupte, the vice chancellor, Dr. Shivali Lavale, the lady behind all what we are going to witness over the next 2 days, and of course the 3 distinguished professors, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, Ambassador Gautam Bambawale, and Ambassador Gokhale. It gives me great pleasure, sir, to welcome you. And we were eagerly waiting for you to come here. But unfortunately, the situation in Maharashtra and specifically Pune city is so bad that it's best people stay in their homes and offices and work from there. And so are we. Nevertheless, the history of symbiosis, I'm sure you are aware of, and Dr. Muzumdar sir will narrate it. But for me, setting up of the Symbiosis School of International Studies was like coming to a full circle. My father, Dr. Muzumdar sir, started this organization 50 years ago, and I'm so glad that since the last and this year, I say 2 years, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. And 50 years ago, when nobody spoke about internationalization, nobody spoke about the soft power that India has, and nobody spoke about doing something for foreign students, he did all that, never realizing that this small organization that was established in our home called Symbiosis will grow into such a large multidisciplinary university of repute. But I'm so happy that, as I said, from a small Symbiosis International Cultural Center, we now have the Symbiosis School of International Studies actually teaching, teaching young students the discussions on international relations, international diplomacy, etc. And for us, these are young, bright minds, and we just take about 30 to 40 students every year. And Shivali gets the best of these students. And I'm so happy that the fifth batch will be passing out this year. And they're doing extremely well. All the 4 batches are doing extremely well, working with think tanks and many other organizations, and even have gone for further studies. In our little way, we are trying to, build a cadre of people beyond the foreign service officers who know international relations, who have studied international relations. This is a very small organization, but we dream big. In fact, before, when we established this organization, we thought, let us establish it as a think tank. And therefore, we started off in 2013 with the IR conferences, one of which we are witnessing today. And I'm so happy that the Ministry of External Affairs from day one supported us, collaborated with us. And I remember the first IR conference that we had organized was in Delhi when the minister was Shri Salman Khurshid. And, at my opening remarks then, I mentioned to him that I think you'll have had enough discussions of IR in Delhi with the same speakers and the same audience. Please shift these discussions to other parts of India. And we will be happy to, bring out these discussions. And Pune would be just the ideal place because it not only has the largest number of universities, academia, students, but even a large industry base, supporting all this. And the first conference that we had was on India's development partnerships, and it was well accepted. We had a lot of people from the corporate, from civil society, and of course, from the academia. In 2014, then we started focusing on various regions, and we focused on India's Look East and Act East policy. In 2015, we focused on India and the Gulf, then of course on the Indian Ocean. Then in 2017, it was India-EU, enhancing strategic partnerships. And in 2018, it was shaping a new strategic culture for India. Of course, because of COVID, we couldn't hold conferences last year. And now this is the 7th edition of the conference, which kind of over-encompasses what we've discussed and looking at how we can shape the foreign policy of India over the next decade. As Shivali very rightly said, I think the theme is so apt at this time, at a time a few months ago when India was trying to help other countries. Now we are seeking help. I mean, the dynamics has changed so much that, we were kind of giving vaccines to others, and now we are seeking help for vaccines from other countries. And therefore, I think one thing that COVID has taught us is the word collaboration or the word interdependence, because you cannot really work in isolation, whether it's individuals, whether it's organizations, universities, or even for that matter, countries and nations. And therefore, you have to work in interdependence. You have to work in collaboration. And that's when really the motto of symbiosis, which Dr. Muzumdar sir thought of 50 years ago, of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one large family, is so very true during these times. So without any more delay, I would once again welcome all the participants, the speakers, and we've got a wonderful array of speakers over the next 2 days. And for me, IR is very, very close to my heart. If I hadn't become a medical doctor, I'm sure I would have joined the foreign services. So I will be glued to the screen over the next 2 days. And I'm sure each one of you are going to enjoy the discussions and deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Vidya. Moving on, while of course he needs no introduction, I will take a few minutes to introduce our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. S.B. Muzumdar. Dr. S.B. Muzumdar is the founder and president of Symbiosis. A distinguished academician and educationist, he's also the chancellor of Symbiosis International University. He joined Fergusson College, Pune, as professor and head of department in botany, the position he held for 20 years. He was a recognized postgraduate teacher and a guide for PhD students. He was a member of the Pune University's Executive Council, the Senate, Academic Council for over 14 years, and chairman of the Board of Studies in Botany for 9 years. He was also ICCR's Foreign Academic Advisor in Pune University for over 7 years. Sir has published over 50 original research articles in several national and international scientific journals. He has authored several books on life sciences and has contributed over 200 articles on science, education, and youth development. I think youth development is something that Sir holds very, very close to his heart. In fact, he was deeply touched by the hardships suffered by the foreign students, especially the Afro-Asian students studying in Pune. And in 1971, he established Symbiosis with a view to help them and provide them a home away from home. He soon realized that education is the best medium for promoting international understanding. He therefore started establishing educational institutions imparting quality instruction in diverse disciplines like management, law, IT, computers, biomedical science, engineering, international relations, and of course, the list goes on. Dr. Muzumdar is the recipient of many awards and honors. The government of India has conferred on him the Padma Shri in 2005 and Padma Bhushan in 2012. He's also the recipient of the Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth, the DLIT, in fact, that was conferred on him by the Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth in 2016. He's the recipient of the first Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Memorial Award. He received the Punya Bhushan Award in 2009. The list goes on, ladies and gentlemen. As we're running short of time, I'm just going to pass the floor to the Honorable Chancellor. Sir, may I please request you to deliver your speech?
Namaste to all of you, and thank you, Shivali, for introducing me. Today's chief guest, Shri Vardhan, Shringla, Foreign Secretary, Minister of External Affairs, Government of India, Ambassador Vijay Gokhale, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmad, Ambassador Gautam Bambawale, Dr. Vidya, Dr. Gupte, Dr. Shivali, and my dear students who are witnessing this online conference from different places. On behalf of Symbiosis International University, I extend you a very hearty welcome, Shringla, for your time and for accepting our invitation. Much has been said about Symbiosis. But let me tell you that when I was professor of botany at Fergusson College, a single incident was a turning point in my life. It was in 1969 Diwali vacation that I saw a young girl passing something through the window of the hostel room to her boyfriend. And being a rector myself, I thought some affair must be going on. I entered into the boys' room, and what I saw, sir, was a Mauritian student suffering from jaundice. All Indian students had gone home to their homes because of Diwali vacation. And he was alone in the hostel. And since the mess were closed, there was no means for him to get food. So when I asked that Mauritian boy, his name was Sakaram, what's the matter going on between you and that girl? He started weeping and told me, sir, she is my sister who prepares food for me in the city and passes it on through the window because girls were not allowed to enter into the boys' hostel. He put his head on my shoulder and started profusely weeping. Believe you me, Shringla, the tears of a foreign student was a turning point in my life. I started inquiring about foreign students studying in Pune way back in 1969. And I realized that most of the foreign students then came from Afro-Asian countries. Tanzania, Romania, Mauritius, Thailand, Vietnam. There were as many as 800 students from 32 different countries. And they had many problems. The problem of getting admissions to good colleges, problems of getting accommodation in hostels, problems regarding food, homesickness, because they were all young undergraduate students. But the most important problem which foreign students faced then was social problem. When they were in their countries, they thought that India is the land of Mahatma Gandhi and Gautam Buddha. But when they landed in Pune, instead of having a cultural thrill, they used to get cultural shock. And many students felt that they were unwanted in Pune. They had many sad stories to tell us. Many African students felt that we in Pune are as color conscious as people in Britain or America. When I realized all this, being a teacher myself, I thought I must do something for the foreign students so that they will become our cultural ambassadors of goodwill. And so, with the help of my former students in Ferguson College and my colleagues, we started a small organization called Symbiosis to promote international understanding and brotherhood between foreign students and Indian students. Initially, Shringla, we used to organize cultural activities, social activities like Eid, Bhaubil, Diwali. But again, after those functions, again there was segregation and there was no dialogue between Indian and foreign students. And that is how we thought that education is perhaps the best medium to promote international understanding between foreign and Indian students. And we gave it symbiosis. And the motto was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, world is one family. Little later, we started many educational institutions like law college, management, telecommunication, media and communication, and that's it. And in 2002, sir, we got deemed to be university status. Now, we have students from nearly 85 different foreign countries and almost students from almost all states of India. And that is how this university has become, in a way, a global university trying to produce global citizens. We are holding this conference at a very difficult time during pandemic. And as Dr. Vidya rightly said, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji supplied vaccines to more than 70, 80 different countries. And now the whole world, most of the countries are there to recognize the help that our Prime Minister rendered to so many countries in the world. And perhaps symbiosis, which signifies coexistence, interdependence, is perhaps relevant even today. And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is actually being witnessed in this hard pandemic time. Because so many countries, so many scientists from working in different countries are coming together for the mutual benefit of each other. In fact, that is the essence of the word symbiosis. And I'm glad that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which our Prime Minister Modi repeatedly tells whenever he goes abroad, is perhaps the touchstone of our India's foreign policy. Ultimately, world is going to become one. Ultimately, there is going to be interdependence, coexistence. In other words, we must learn, and that is the lesson taught to humanity by Corona, that we must learn to live together for mutual benefit. We must create hope and help for all people in the world. This is a great Upanishadic thought, but how relevant it has become during pandemic time. So I'm very, very happy that you spare time for this particular organization, and I hope one day you will come to attend physical conference of our international students in Pune, because we have 3,000 students in our university from as many as 85 countries. That day will be a great day in the life of Symbiosis, and personally, I will be happy to come and personally address these international students in Pune. With these few words, I express good wishes for this conference, and I wish all the best to all the people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you always for those inspiring words. Before I request the Honorable Foreign Secretary, Shri Shringla ji, to deliver the keynote address, just give me 2 minutes to introduce him. In the course of his diplomatic career spanning over 36 years, Foreign Secretary Vardhan Shringla has held a variety of positions in New Delhi and abroad. He has served as India's ambassador to the United States of America and the Kingdom of Thailand, and as High Commissioner to Bangladesh. He has also served in other diplomatic assignments in France, USA, Vietnam, Israel, and South Africa. Director General responsible for Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and the Maldives. He has also headed the United Nations Political and SAARC divisions in the ministry. Earlier, he served as director of the Northern Division dealing with Nepal and Bhutan, and as Deputy Secretary in the Europe West Division. Shri Vardhan Shringla ji assumed charge as the 33rd Foreign Secretary of India on 29th January 2020. So please, may I request you to deliver the keynote address.
Namaskar. Dr. S.P. Majumdar, founder and president, Symbiosis, and Chancellor, Symbiosis International University. Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar, Pro-Chancellor, Symbiosis International University. Dr. Rajni Gupte, Vice Chancellor, Symbiosis International University. Professor Shivali Lavale, international students, distinguished guests, friends. It gives me very great pleasure to deliver this address at the inaugural session of the International Relations Conference of the prestigious Symbiosis International University, Pune. I understand that you are at your 50th anniversary year, and I want to felicitate the university. I did listen to Professor Yeravdekar speaking about how the university has evolved from its origins into now a very profound multidisciplinary university, which is renowned not only nationally but also internationally. I also heard very carefully Dr. Majumdar's speech and his remarks regarding the enormous empathy and inclusivity that the university has, in particular for international students. And I think this is, for us in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a very, very, I would say, great area of interest. And certainly one of the reasons why there are so many foreign students in Pune is clearly the sort of receptivity they find in terms of the educational space and the facilities and concern that the universities and educational institutions have for them. I also understand that several of my very esteemed colleagues, former colleagues, Foreign Service officers, Professor Talmiz Ahmed, my immediate predecessor, esteemed predecessor, former Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale, my batchmate and friend, Master Gautam Bambawale, are associated with Symbiosis University. Given their depth of experience and expertise, I have no doubt that they would contribute greatly to the work of the School of International Studies and the overall output that the university is producing. As I mentioned when we had an opportunity to interact briefly, I very much wanted to be present in person at the university, but of course, the situation dictated otherwise. Pune is one of the most international of India's cities. It has also been a crucible of ideas and of movements that have shaped the direction in which our country has moved. This is the base of the Peshwas. It is also the home of two of our great leaders, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and social reformer, Jyotirao Phule. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who played such a prominent role in framing our constitution, was also strongly associated with the city. In modern times, Pune has become an industrial and educational hub. It has universities that teach students from across the world. It has a concentration of large business operations. We are in the shadow of the greatest shock to the international system since the Second World War. We are living through a catastrophic health disaster, the consequences of which are yet to be fathomed. We know that health emergencies last year and currently, in the wake of the second wave of the pandemic, have triggered a series of lockdowns that have resulted in economic slowdowns and GDP contractions. These effects have spilled over and beyond the economy to all sectors of life. The loss of more than 3 million lives worldwide and have countless livelihoods affected have irreversibly perhaps affected an entire way of living. The pandemic has had a major impact on our diplomatic environment. Some trends have been accelerated and new equations have appeared. The bipolar world that prevailed during the Cold War gave way to a unipolar system following the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union. A further transition is underway as this unipolar world order moves to a multipolar world order. This rearrangement or rebalancing is driven in part by change in the determinants of power. The rise of China has also placed us in a central role at the geopolitical stage. It is our largest neighbor and one with whom we share more than just a border and proximity. We are at the core of a greater Asian and Indo-Pacific space that is witnessing dynamic change. This churning is taking place within an international system of unprecedented complexity. We live in a world that has two prominent characteristics. The first is that we are globalized. We live in an international community linked together at multiple levels by multiple arrangements. Economies are interlinked. Technology obeys no borders. Our education and our entertainment are drawn from global content pools. Our families live across the world. The second striking characteristic is the rate of change. We live in a world of e-commerce, streaming media, social media, energy transition, biotech and gene editing technologies, autonomous vehicles and advanced materials. Innovations and changes are constantly being introduced into our lives and into our consciousness. Many of them were just ideas decades ago. The determinants of comprehensive national power are changing rapidly and include not just territory and human and natural resources, but also technology, connectivity, and a country's economic and business prowess. India itself is changing rapidly. We have quickly grown in economic, political, and military strength. We are a country with global interests. We are one of the largest and most able diasporas. Our economy and our material well-being is linked to global value chains and supply chains. We are a service powerhouse with a distinct international presence. We see the world as an interlinked economy. India has also well-established interests and positions in global governance regimes, in climate, technology, health, and other global commons. It is important to remember that the globalized world carries with it its risks and unpredictability. The rate of change brings a significant degree of uncertainty to our world. The current pandemic underlines some of these risks. We live in an age of the black swan. It is a time of disruptions of the unexpected. The nature of threats has changed. Conventional war has been supplanted by rising security threats from terrorism, climate change, and biological and other non-traditional threats. New technologies have created not just new industries, but new political currents. non-traditional threats and new technologies have combined to form a whole new spectrum of sub-conventional security challenges. We also live in a world where interdependence has been weaponized. This is a highly complex, multi-layered, and multi-dimensional operating environment. It defies geometry and does not allow us to think in terms of binaries. Sometimes it also does not permit an easy distinction between the global and the local. Indian diplomatic strategy is adjusting to these changes and this complex and uncertain environment. This requires agility and flexibility. It requires the ability to think and act innovatively and to adapt, not just in terms of operations, but also at the conceptual level. It is an environment that External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, has described as one of multi-alignments, and that is also part of the subject of our discussion today. We must, in an environment such as this, build the capacities that allow us to maintain decisional autonomy. We must focus on acquiring a leadership role that allows us to both participate in and contribute to the emerging world order. We must deepen cooperation with old partners and allies. We must, at the same time, forge new partnerships with rising powers. We must have a dynamic and proactive global strategy in a multipolar world that adjusts to alliances and convergences that are fluid and issue-based. We must engage simultaneously with multiple centers of gravity and capacities in an extremely complex and fast-moving global scenario. We must also not forget that geography remains destiny. The primary spatial orientation of India's foreign policy remains its immediate neighborhood, under the Neighborhood First policy. It is supported by the revitalized Act East policy and the Think West policy that seeks to enhance our engagement in our extended neighborhood. The countries in our neighborhood are of unique and special strategic significance to India. Relations with them also impact our own states that border these neighbors. The primacy given to our near abroad in our diplomatic efforts is reflected in not only the Neighborhood First policy, a central pillar of India's foreign and security policies since 2014, but also, as I mentioned, the Act East and the Look West policies. The bulk of our diplomatic resources, financial and human, are deployed here in our immediate neighborhood. India's lines of credit to its neighbors, for example, have jumped from US $3.27 billion in 2014 to $14.7 billion in 2020. I would like to draw your attention to some trends. Connectivity projects are being implemented at an unprecedented pace. Railway projects with Bangladesh, Nepal, Chabahar and Sitwe ports in Iran and Myanmar respectively, and Indian waterway projects in Iran and Myanmar respectively, that are facilitating rapid transport of goods and people between different nations in the region and different parts of India. And these are transport corridors that have been created and are being created recently. The energy grids of India are linked with Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, and Myanmar. India has invested in power projects in Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Nepal. Power trade in our neighborhood is a reality today. Hydrocarbon pipelines link India with Nepal and Bangladesh. Newer areas of cooperation in financial technology, such as RuPay cards, space cooperation, and nuclear power cooperation are emerging. I expect these trends to accelerate over the next decade. India has always been a maritime nation. 90% of our trade happens through sea lanes. The Prime Minister's vision of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, underpins our vision of the Indian Ocean region and the greater Indo-Pacific region. It is an inclusive and forward-looking vision, and it is worth reiterating the main points made by the Prime Minister at his speech in Singapore in 2018, when he stated that our vision of this region is a free, open, inclusive region that embraces us all in a common pursuit of progress and prosperity. He also stated that a common rules-based order is required for the region, in which all have equal access as a right under international law to the use of common space such as the sea and air. This will be a space where we will try and enhance connectivity, provide net security, and promote the vision of a democratic and rules-based international community. We are supporting the Indian Ocean Rim Association and the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative to build on our progressive agenda for the region. We believe that the ASEAN countries will be central to realizing our vision of the Indo-Pacific. We have strengthened our engagement with ASEAN and ASEAN members bilaterally and through India-ASEAN initiatives under our Act East policy. India engages with ASEAN in multiple formats, such as participation in ASEAN-India summits, the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Regional Forum, ASEM, ADMM+, the expanded ASEAN Maritime Forum. Our BIMSTEC and IORA initiatives are also expected to grow and bring us closer to ASEAN. Exciting concepts such as the Ganga-Mekong cooperation have much potential. India's Northeast is a land bridge between it and ASEAN. Connectivity projects are steadily transforming that region, and I expect that these will have a major impact on India-ASEAN relations in the next decade. India's relations with major powers have attained comprehensive strategic levels while maintaining strategic autonomy. The India-US bilateral partnership was elevated to a comprehensive global strategic partnership in February 2020. A new momentum in India-US relations has emerged in our engagement with the Biden administration. We expect this intense engagement to continue. You would have all noted that the first Leaders Summit of the Quad framework was held virtually in March this year. It had a forward-looking agenda that focused on issues such as vaccines and critical technologies. A new strategic dimension was also added to India's partnership with Russia, with a special emphasis on defense and space cooperation. You would be aware that a $1 billion line of credit for the development of the Russian Far East was announced by the Prime Minister. This is something that is under implementation. We have entered into a green strategic partnership with Denmark. This is a new concept, and it is a template of our emerging cooperation with Europe. It is a relationship that will focus on elevating Indo-European ties by building on areas of common interest such as digital cooperation, climate change, mobility, and connectivity agreements. We accord importance to our relations with China. However, the maintenance of peace and tranquility on our borders is an essential prerequisite for the development of the relationship in other areas. India's relations with the Gulf and Middle Eastern countries have entered a new chapter with greater strategic content, economic cooperation, business flows, energy cooperation, and diaspora-related engagement. Japan has become one of our most important partners. It is one of the largest investors in India. It is assisting us with projects of national importance, such as the high-speed rail corridor between Ahmedabad and Mumbai. We work together in the Northeast in a new paradigm of cooperation through the India-Japan Act East Forum. Australia has emerged as a key partner in the Indo-Pacific. Africa is the continent of the future. The India-Africa Forum and its summits are a platform that we created to shape our engagement with the continent. Regular high-level contact is being pursued at an unprecedented pace with visits to over 30 African countries at the level of the President, Vice President, and Prime Minister over the last few years. More than 2/3 of our lines of credit in the last decade have been extended to Africa. India also hosts African students under its ITEC program, and I understand that several African students are studying in Pune, particularly in Symbiosis University. We will remain committed to the multilateral system. The pandemic has, however, demonstrated the limitations of the existing international system. A purely economic agenda has defined globalization so far, and nations have cooperated more to balance competing individual interests rather than advance the collective interests of all humankind. The limitations of this approach is evident. In this context, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called for a human-centric globalization. It is a globalization based on fairness, equality, and humanity. India has always been a constructive actor in shaping such a human welfare-centric international system by sharing developmental experiences with partner countries in the Global South, undertaking humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations, particularly during the pandemic, through initiatives such as the International Solar Alliance and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and by acting as a first responder and net security provider in its diplomatic environment, particularly in the Indian Ocean region and our immediate environment. We are currently serving a 2-year term in the UN Security Council. We have just finished chairing the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We are currently the chair of BRICS. We are going to be chairing the G20 in 2023. We will also be present at the G7 meeting in London in June. We will expand our vision of human-centric globalization and of reformed multilateralism and work through these and other multilateral and plurilateral platforms in the decade ahead. India is committed to be a leader in climate action and climate ambition. India has had a remarkable track record in augmenting its renewable energy capacity. We are committed to having 450 gigawatts of renewable capacity by 2030. We are one of the few countries in the world that has succeeded in increasing its forest cover. These are some of the actions that place India on a path towards energy transition and reduction of carbon intensity. I just referred to the International Solar Alliance and the CDRI, the Coalition Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. India, as you're aware, is one of the few countries, and at present, the only G20 country, that will exceed the Paris Agreement commitments and whose nationally determined contributions are 2 degrees compatible. India will lead in thought and action in the domestic and diplomatic arena in this front. Climate action and sustainable development would also figure increasingly in our development partnership portfolio. India has a full spectrum development partnership presence with a global footprint. I have spoken of our work on connectivity and energy. You will hear more about our work in areas such as renewable energy, technology solutions, and digital and financial inclusion in the years to come. India's development cooperation is demand-driven, and we are in a position to fulfill demands from our partners in these areas in the years to come. India will also continue to make efforts to take a broader and comprehensive view of security and improve the net security situation. It will continue to deal with existing and newer threats through platforms such as the FATF and counterterrorism channels in BIMSTEC, SEO, the UN and other plurilateral and multilateral fora. India will work with partners in areas such as augmentation of domain awareness, in building capacity in traditional and non-traditional areas, and the promotion of interoperability. All crises are followed by periods of growth. The current crisis, as grim as it looks presently, will abate. Empirical evidence points to the direction of a subsequent period of growth. In this context, India's diplomatic strategy takes into account the imperative of an Atmanirbhar Bharat that catalyzes a globalized India, focused on linking the local to the global, on becoming a nerve center of global supply chains and a manufacturing hub. We have to adapt to the geo-economic trends and the geotechnical trends that the pandemic has both revealed and accelerated. I've already spoken of the rate of change and the salience of technology. How technology can be harnessed to help and not hurt is one of the greatest questions of the day. Algorithms must not harm. Transparency is required. Forward-looking and positive rules that are congruent with good public policy, with protecting legitimate free speech and promoting accountability and transparency are required. Working with big tech and participating in the shaping of the new rules of the game on data, on e-commerce, on an emerging areas such as artificial intelligence and biotech will be a new focus of our activities. Our ministry already has a cyber diplomacy division, a new and emerging strategic technologies division that are working on these issues. This, as I've said before, is an area of the uncertain and the unexpected. I would like to end by bringing to your notice how Indian diplomacy responded to the challenge of the pandemic. India has been at the forefront of diplomatic efforts to deal with the pandemic and its consequences to the participation in SAARC, G20, BRICS, the UN, and other international initiatives, many of which were undertaken by us or initiated by us. We have adapted rapidly to virtual diplomacy. The Prime Minister has conducted over 12 virtual summits and more than 75 virtual bilateral summits, meetings. The External Affairs Minister has conducted at least 34 ministerial and joint commissions with 28 multilateral engagements, over 159 telephone calls with foreign counterparts, bilateral and plurilateral dialogues in several sectors such as foreign office consultations, other modes of interacting with our partner countries have also switched to virtual platforms. Through Operation Sanjeevani, essentially making sure that pharmaceuticals were available to countries all over the world, and Vaccine Maitri, India has established itself as a country with internationally relevant healthcare capacities. India established itself as a reliable global pharma hub, supplying medicines and equipment to over 154 countries in the face of daunting logistical challenges. Indian HADR operations acquired global dimensions with the deployment of rapid response teams to the Maldives, Kuwait, Mauritius, and Comoros, and Mission Sagar to Maldives, Mauritius, Madagascar, Comoros, Seychelles, Sudan, South Sudan, Djibouti, Eritrea, Vietnam, and Cambodia. Just giving you a sense of the extensive international support that we provided during the initial period of the pandemic. Our network of diplomatic posts played a key role in organizing the Vande Bharat mission, the largest logistical mission of its kind ever undertaken by the government of India, which has facilitated to date the movement of over 7 million people through lockdowns and post-lockdown periods. We have also worked on air bubbles that have been established now in 27 countries. Of course, even as we speak, these are undergoing some adjustments in the wake of the second wave of the pandemic. But we will try our best to keep open air transport corridors, particularly for cargo movement that is so essential in terms of the global supply chains and the economic interdependability that I spoke about. A 24/7 COVID cell was created at the outset within our ministry. It managed a global effort to assist millions of Indians stranded by successive lockdowns. In the wake of the second wave of the pandemic, we have once again constituted teams of our best officers to coordinate and channelize global efforts to source raw materials for our vaccines, pharma, and medical industries, to source oxygen and oxygen-producing equipment, and for coordinating the delivery of essential and relief supplies to India. We had participated in the earlier global procurement effort for medical supplies, such as PPEs and testing kits during the initial shortages. I would like to end by emphasizing that even in an increasingly transactional world, India does not and cannot live in a moral vacuum. We are a nation that believes, and this is pointed out by Dr. Majumdar, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and the principle of Nishkama Karma, that good needs to be done for its own sake. If you notice that many of the offers of assistance that we are receiving internationally have also put it in the context of the assistance that they themselves have received earlier from India. If we had not supplied essential medicines and pharmaceutical products, if we had not supplied 66 million doses of vaccines to over 95 countries, I think many countries that are today coming forward to assist us in this second wave of the pandemic would not be as forthcoming. And I think we have established that working for the global common good is something that is in the interest of humanity, that particularly in the context of the COVID crisis, countries need to come together to cooperate, not compete with each other for scarce resources that their citizens need. So cooperation and coordination is the way forward. We have established the way, and we'll continue to work with all of our international partners in ensuring that as the COVID pandemic progresses, our citizens and those of and the citizens of countries all over the world are provided with the sort of assistance and support that is necessary. In fact, our ministry is at the center of coordinating efforts that are required in, as I mentioned, not only sourcing very essential priority products from all over the world, but also in making sure that the assistance that are being given by many countries, over 30 countries that have offered such assistance in the form of oxygen generating plants, heavy equipment, concentrators, remdesivir, drugs, etc., is immediately not only received but cleared quickly and then sent to different parts of the country where it's needed. It is one thing to get this assistance; it's another thing to have them in airports, stuck in various logistical bottlenecks, and we're trying to address those. And this is something that our ministry is currently fully engaged with our partners from different Government of India departments and agencies. I would like to leave you with a thought. Finally, And this is essentially that in this difficult circumstances, to be a responsible member of the international community is to take a far-sighted view. And we expect that this will stand us in good stead in the post-pandemic world. I want to wish the international conference of Symbiosis University the very best. I know that we have some excellent speakers that are going to be participating in this conference. I know that this has been a very, very major event in previous years, which my predecessors, particularly former Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale, has been very much integrally involved with. And as the Ministry of External Affairs, we do believe we are a partner and a stakeholder in your international conference. And we certainly will continue to follow the events over the next day or two in the conference. And we wish you all success and the very best. Thank you so very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much for your insightful keynote address, where you've highlighted the evolving contours of India's foreign policy, wherein you've brought our attention to the advancements in the technological realm. You spoke about artificial intelligence. You also spoke about the various new departments that you have established at the Ministry of External Affairs. You also brought our attention to the important point of interdependency and interconnectedness. In fact, that is a point that resonates very strongly with the motto of our university, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. You brought our attention to the important priorities, those of deepening our relations with our traditional partners, but also reaching out to new partners. You spoke about the neighborhood policy, a very, very important aspect. You also highlighted the Act East policy as well as the Look West policy. These are, in fact, extremely important topics that are studied by our students, in fact, part of our curriculum. So thank you so much for bringing all of those points through your keynote address. You also talked about the relationship with Europe, another extremely crucial and important point of our foreign policy. You spoke about other important engagements through BRICS and BIMSTEC. So you also highlighted Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is in fact something that resonates very, very strongly with our student population. Thank you for highlighting that, because this is exactly what they need to hear from you. You also spoke about the vaccine diplomacy, something that we have been privy to, that information that has been coming to us through the various media channels. So, but it was extremely, I would say, we're extremely honored to hear that from you. So thank you very much for touching upon these very, very important points. And of course, the way ahead. You also spoke about the human-centric globalization, a point, again, that resonates with our top management. And like I said, and I would like to repeat here, the motto of our university, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So thank you very much, sir, for sparing time and for being with us. And we really look forward to having you with us in the near future. Dr. Vidya, Dr. Mazumdar, sir, thank you again through your wonderful insights, your wonderful speeches. You have reminded us of the motto and your commitment to bringing the best to the university through our quality education. And also, I think, not just quality education, but also making our students global citizens, people who are equipped to take on the world with all its challenges. And I think your messages have come in at a very, very important and possibly a very crucial time, which is, of course, against the backdrop of what we are witnessing today. So thank you very much, Honorable Foreign Secretary Shri Shringla ji, Dr. Vidya Yarodekar, and of course, Dr. S.B. Mazumdar. So thank you.